So new door or not is the question. We would look at the door construction. If it's the original door, you're talking these doors are probably about 30 years old, these ones. So they've been subject to massive wear and tear. It's actually onto a kitchen, a communal kitchen. So there is a significant amount of wear and tear. They'll have been adjusted. Door coverings, they'll be adjusted because they've maybe swollen up or they didn't fit properly. Door thicknesses. The door thickness, so you're talking 30-minute fire door would be about 44mm thick hardwood, and 60-minute fire door would be a 54mm thickness. Door integrity, the hinges. I've got some photos later about hinges that have been painted, hinges that have not been serviced, they're really dirty, they're full of oil, etc. Anything of that nature, they need to be clean and they need to be well maintained. The frame and standard needs to be intact, no big gouges out them, gaps in behind them, gaps in behind the facings, etc. Just because a facing's there, sometimes it hides a multitude of sins in existing doors. Regulations state that there needs to be a 3mm consistent gap all the way around the door. That's between the actual door and the frame. And appropriate intumescent materials need to be used. So intumescent materials, so right the way around the door, on 4 sides, there needs to be intumescent material present. You've got things like handles, lock sets, around the hinges, a spy hole, a letterbox. They all need to be covered by intumescent materials. Ironmongering, the closer. Fire doors must have a closer. Whether in the case of the ones in the photo, it was actually a bomber hinge. Some of them will have a perco on them, and some of them will have an overhead or a concealed closer in them as well. So there is various types. You'll find that the ones that are installed now, the vast majority of them will have overhead closer or a concealed cam closer. General condition, again, that photo, you can see general condition, that would tell you that that's not a fully functioning fire door, it's a non-compliant fire door. General condition, wear and tear is fine on a fire door as long as you're confident it's actually going to perform in the event of a fire. Excuse me. Anything to do with like hinges painted, the doors being painted, what's the paint it's been painted with, etc. So you're kind of building up almost a history of the door here. Does it fit in the frame? Quite often we come across where a door that's potentially been about 30 years old, they've actually just replaced the leaf of the door, and a new leaf will never fit into an existing opening correctly, and it will never perform, particularly in a really old building. And does the door close sufficiently and completely? So from about 5 degrees or 75mm is the reg. Does the door close under its own steam and in good time? I had one that took 10 minutes to close. We were away assessing another door and we had this click, and it was the one that we'd done before closing. So not really sufficient. Needs to close into the opening sufficiently and not provide any gaps around to stop the spread of fire and smoke. What to look for, just generally, fits the opening. It fits the opening to prevent the passage of fire and smoke, and it's fit for purpose. You would know yourself if you saw a door on site, whether it needed replaced or not. These are some examples. I could almost put my finger into that gap. That's way too big a gap. Even more worrying, that's on the hinge side. And if you look at the top here, it's actually packed with a timber packer. Could be an intumescent packer. This is a new-ish fire door fitted into an existing opening. There's absolutely been zero in here. There's no intumescent material in this area. There's also a screw missing here. They must have 4 screws. They must have a minimum of 3 hinges. This is the reverse of the door in the main picture. You can see just from the wear and tear there that the door is not fit for purpose. There's no intumescent material. There's no smoke seals. There's nothing. It's just a door, really. Again, we talked about maintaining the hinges. I don't know how many times these hinges have been repaired and replaced. There's a screw missing, and exactly how many times have they been painted as well? What have they been painted with? You know, some of the paints, the older paints, they can act as an accelerant for fire. That's obviously a concern as well. This is a fire door. This is a new fire door that actually had these hooks actually screwed onto the back of the new fire door. So it was a £1,500 fire door, and they put these hooks on the back there, basically compromising the integrity of the actual fire door by puncturing through the skin. This is a standard that had been replaced. Zero intumescent material there. So really not worth putting a fire door in there because the fire's just going to pass through there. This is a closer that had been replaced on a fire door. The closer was a non-fire rated closer on there. So again, hardly worth doing the repair because the fire door does not comply anymore. This is a little tool that I use, a little door gauge on there. At the thick end, it's 10mm, so that's probably about 7mm gap. That's a cracker. That's nearly a 35mm gap underneath the fire door. Again, that's a 10mm gap at the top of a fire door. I think this is my favourite fire door photo of all time. Yep, a fire risk assessor with his foot underneath a fire door, and that was a real situation. So these are some of the things that we come across. You can tell from all of these photos that these are kind of older doors. This is the risk that we have, is with older doors, they're not really compliant anymore because they've been chopped and repaired and painted and who knows what else. They've been moved between openings as well. Yeah, that might just fit in that door, so we'll just move it and we'll do something else for this other opening. So buildings do need maintained, but really the fire door is critical to the safety of the residents and the occupants of the building. So fitting new fire doors, we're actually looking at. So fitting the fire doors, yeah, we're actually looking at almost a chain of command on this. So we're looking for fire door sets. I always recommend that the fitting a new fire resistant door set, a tested and certified door set, is way better than trying to fit a new fire door blank into an existing opening. I would always recommend that a fire door set is installed just for the client's comfort. We need to make sure that the fire door is appropriate for the situation. And I've got as an example there, FD60S for a boiler room. It's a high risk area. If there was going to be a fire, you're talking places like boiler plant rooms, lift motor rooms, communal kitchens, server rooms, etc. in developments, and also past doors. They should all be FD60s. Get test certification and door specifications from manufacturer. So what I normally do is I would identify a suitable manufacturer. I would get a copy of the test certification and the actual door specification. This all goes into the log of the door. We store it electronically. Door sets must be fitted as per manufacturer's instructions. So as part of the test certification, they will have a standard fitting mechanism. So some of them will use things like intumescent rock wool. They might use foam, they might use sealant, but the mechanism and the actual specification for the actual replacement and the fitting of the door is driven by the manufacturer, not by a contract administrator, not by the client. It's how is the manufacturer telling us that this door should be installed to meet the fire certification that it has. I don't know if anybody's seen a fire door being tested. So basically they take it down to Warrington Fire, they build it into a rig and they burn it on a furnace and they time it. So the manufacturer gets back a video of the door burn and it actually just counts up. A 30-minute fire door, it has to achieve over 30 minutes. If it's a 60, it's over 60. If it's a 120, etc., etc. They're actually, I tried to get a video, I've got a video, but I tried to cut it down. I didn't quite manage it to cut it down. My specialism is fire doors and buildings, not editing videos. So I tried to cut it down so it would kind of speed up on a time lapse, but no, not my forte. But if you go on YouTube, there's plenty of videos of that. If you've got half an hour or an hour to spend your time watching a door getting burnt. The finishes can be any material, so it can be MDF, it could be PVC, it could be softwood, it could be a hardwood if you're feeling flush. They do not affect the fire rating of the door set because it's actually within the actual opening. So any finishings on the front won't actually affect that. The fire door set will still perform. More about fitting new fire doors. Specification is critical. We would look to assist clients on specifying particular fire doors for a particular situation. The materials all must be certified. All of materials must be certified to BS 476 Part 22, and that's the door set complete. The packers must be intumescent packers. Foams, I recommend Exitex Blue 60 foam because it's certified to 476 Part 22. Any silicon sealants, I've got FireMate there. FireMate again, it's 476 Part 22, and Rockwool packing, RWG3, sorry. So really any of the materials that are used within that need to actually be certified to BS 476 Part 22. Part 20 and Part 22 are probably your two most important BSs on that. Now, fitter, I've met joiners that were, they'd been in the game 30, 40 years and they still didn't know how to fit a fire door properly. So there needed to be a lot of education done there. The best fitters you can get are the ones that are certified to either LPS 1271 standard or they're certified by BM Trada or QMark. They're kind of like a bit like hen's teeth at the moment. If you get a good one, hang on to them because they are in quite short supply just now. Then what we would look to do is, as part of our work, is we would certify an actual installation. Accredited, again, we've got BM Trada and QMark qualified and LPS 1271. So the actual pack that you get as part of the certification would be the original test certification from the manufacturer, the specification, the material list from the manufacturer, the actual fitting squad certification, a pack of photos from during the installation, just so you can satisfy yourself with quality, and that forms your complete pack as a certificate before it can be issued, and that gives you the kind of comfort and the security over that. One thing we do as part of new door installations, we use an asset tagging system. So we use a little vision tag that basically gets stuck on the door frame, and if somebody's going to repair that, it's NFC enabled, and if somebody's going along to actually somebody's going along to repair the door or replace a part on the door, they can actually scan the tag, and it will bring up the full specification. It will tell them exactly, so it won't just tell them just nip down to Juicing and get a £10 letterbox to stick it in. I'll actually tell them you need a Royd and Tucker incandescent 60-minute fire resistant letterbox at £60 instead of a tenner. I've had instances where we've replaced fire doors that costed £2,500 each. The letter flap's been ripped off by the postie, and the wee man's beetled along. He was told to replace the letterbox, so he stuck the £10 juicing one in. The door is not compliant. So repairs and remedial work, this is almost as important. In fact, it probably is more important than the installation. So we have fire doors will require repairs and remediation at some point during their life. We all know that, working in social housing. Where the skin of the door is compromised, as in the actual coloured skin of the door is broken, then we must get a BM Trada or QMark qualified repair contractor, and the repair must be certified. So normally at that point we would contact the actual manufacturer. They normally have guys that can do that. It does cost a lot of money, so I think it was about £400 for a repair. I think the last time I did one, that was for somebody had dragged a kitchen carpet along the face of the door and scratched right through the skin of the door. So items such as hinges, locks, letterboxes can be repaired or adjusted by a competent tradesman. But what I've got there is a note that repairs should always be post-inspected. The only actual item on the whole door set that can be replaced without engaging a BM Trada or a competent person would be the actual lock barrel. That's the only item in the whole door set that is not subject to that kind of certification. The golden thread. So on the back of the Grenfell Tower inquiry and the Hackett inquiry, that Dame Judith is doing a review of the building standards. It's actually going to be basically it's almost like an MOT for a building. So every repair, every replacement, every system check, etc., all goes into a file. And it's basically the pros is there. The golden thread is both the information about a building that allows someone to understand the building and keep it safe, and that kind of says it all for me. So on the back of that, full record of the manufacturer, the fitting team, and any remedial work which has been carried out on the fire door set is required to ensure that the door certification remains intact and the building occupants are kept safe. We need to watch because I've named BT and Sky as two of the worst offenders there, but it's not an exhaustive list. Things like telecoms companies, fire alarm companies, any kind of internet providers, intercoms companies, the list it goes on and on. You need to watch with their penetrations, and particularly where they're going into houses. I did a development in Edinburgh where, again, the doors were about £2,000 each. We were actually on the floor above and we heard this hammering and drilling, and I thought, what's going on there? Went down one level only to find Virgin Media drilling through the frame of a £2,000 door set to install their cabling. So, and it had only been installed 2 days before, so that was £2,000 down the drain. Again, mention of the use of the asset tagging system to hold all the information for each door site, and clear communications with the residents within the blocks on what it means to have a fire door installed in their home or block or complex. So this is including past doors as well. We did have a couple of tenants like to hammer in a picture hook to hang a picture on their front door in one of the shelter housing schemes that we were doing, and also somebody actually put a hanging basket on the fire door for some reason in a shelter scheme. So again, because it broke the skin of the door, it's actually the integrity of the door was completely gone at that point. Again, another point with regards to repairs and maintenance would be the training of in-house labour teams and any incumbent contractor on how to treat and basically look after a fire door. Just a kind of short aside here. That picture, again, that's another picture from another horrendous incident, which kind of drove change in legislation as well. At Ronan Point, where there was a gas explosion, and this drove the formation of the gas safety regs. The Ronan Point was a large panel system and a multi-storey building in London. There is an explosion risk within these buildings as well. So whilst they need fire doors, etc., they also need compartmentation, and they also need good safety and strength within the buildings. In our experience of working with multi-stories in Glasgow, there's an explosion risk from secondary heating systems, so things such as tower gas heaters and patio heaters. We did a structural assessment on a multi-story, and there was additional structural flips needed to ensure the integrity, but also we looked at a detection system to actually see if we could capture people bringing Cala gas cylinders into the buildings, and then an escalation process that if there was a live capture, which we had about 7 weeks ago, we had a live capture on site, and it was escalated to the 24/7 concierge service, and they beetled round and tackled the tenant on that. Chameleon Detect is the company that we use, and basically there's a camera at the front and back door, tracking people using artificial intelligence to identify what they're carrying, whether they're carrying their shopping or whether they're carrying a Cala gas cylinder for their flat. There's one of the images from the actual camera there, so that you can see that's picked up a cylinder there from the description. So that would automatically, a notification would get sent to the concierge on that. M4. So what do we provide? We provide fire strategies and policies for clients. We do fire risk assessments. We do fire door audits. We form fire action plans, site specific. We provide robust specifications for clients. We assist with procurement, utilising frameworks or compiling bills of quantities together. We assist with project delivery, project management, and we do third-party certification. So, thanks very much for your time. I'm just going to kind of move on to the questions, because I think there's quite a few coming back. Stop sharing my screen here. Oh, wow, a lot of questions. So, first question, should every door be a fire door? If not, what areas are key? Depends on your policy, really, for the organisation. If it's a safe policy and you've got a block, all the doors to each individual dwelling should be a fire-resistant door, whether it's 60 or 30 minutes. That's for the building regulations to dictate, or the client to decide. You can go over and above the regulations if you wish. Key areas would be apartments, breaking long corridors up into suitable areas to stop the spread of fire. Again, boiler rooms, common kitchens, lift motor rooms, server rooms, manager's office, anywhere where there's a likely ignition of fire needs to be a complete compartment. We also do compartment surveys, and we're really getting quite shocked about how many compartment breaches there are within the buildings that we're actually having a look at just now. This is from Lisa. If a fire door or any of its components are not compliant, does that mean they do not offer the 30 or 60 minutes? I meant, does the whole door set not offer 30 or 60 minutes if one part fails? So for example, if you had your 30 or 60 minute fire door and you didn't have your 30 or 60 minute fire door intumescent letterbox on it, you had your £10 juice in one, simple answer is no. If one part fails, it all failed. It's a bit like a car MOT. You know, if one part fails the MOT, the car fails the MOT. It's as simple as that. How often should a fully secure fire door be replaced? Is there a minimum recommendation? An internal door, fire door, would probably last 20 to 25 years. We probably expect 25 years, being as it's hardwood. Really, you would replace it if it becomes no longer fit for purpose. So if it doesn't meet a fire door audit, that's when it should be replaced. What training and communications do you recommend for tenants? Depending on individual clients, we would probably recommend that there's a, either a tenants forum are brought into the project, and we take them on the journey with us with regards to fire doors. I come from a housing background. I spent 20 years in social housing, so yes, the communication with the tenants is kind of key on that as well, to ensure that not only the project delivers exactly what it sets out to, but the ongoing operation of the door is adhered to by the tenants. I kind of mentioned a couple of examples about putting pictures and posters and picture frames and God knows what else onto their doors and nailing them through. The doors are there for their safety, so they need to be aware of what they can and can't do. But I think if you put that down in it, maybe a small leaflet or a tenant liaison officer is normally quite good at explaining things like that. We use tenant liaison officers in some of the projects we do. One from Graham: it's very common to see overhead door closers removed by tenants as they find the door heavy. Yes, agreed, Graham. They can be adjusted. I've had particular experience of this in a shelter development where we had some very frail people. We used a cam closer. So basically the way that a cam closer works is when the tenant opens the door, it's just as if they're opening the door without the closer on it, and then the cam closer actually pulls the door shut. So you're not actually pushing against anything if you're the resident. That's quite important, particularly in certain situations, care homes, etc., where you've got frail users. One other point on the closers as well is within a fire incident or fire situation, the closers are actually designed to fall off to prevent the door being held open or held shut in whatever case it might be. So you actually need to use the screws that they come with, specially designed screws that the head falls off and then the closer falls off. And that's one of the things that came out in the Grenfell Tower inquiry. They noted when they went round after the fire that they said, oh, there was so many closers missing. Well, they're actually designed just to fall off. So they can't really ascertain how many were still in situ or had been used, or how many had just fallen off like they were meant to do. I think Dave's kind of touched on it there as well about the closer as well. If you're inspecting fire doors on an annual basis, you will be picking up these items where the closer's been missing or the closer being disabled by the tenant as well, which sometimes they do. But again, that's down to your recording, your asset tagging. You can actually scan the tag and you can say that's all the inspections that have been carried out, that's all the repairs that have been carried out. Where should fire extinguishers be placed in relation to fire doors? The placing of the fire extinguisher, they should actually be where the fire risk assessment. It's not really anything to do with the fire doors. They certainly couldn't impede them, but they would be placed in areas of high risk where they can be easily accessed, and that would come through from the fire risk assessment. What is an acceptable gap between the FD30 and the frame if tips and seals are fitted? Again, you're talking 3 mil. It's generally 3 mil across the board. What are your thoughts about adding extra security locks to flat entrance doors? From Neil. You can't add any extra locks to a fire door. What I would probably recommend is you go for a secure by design fire door, a multi-point locking system, which is available. Not any kind of bolt screwed on or any kind of additional security locks that I'm not really sure what type of locks you would actually be hoping to fit to the door. But certainly, if you look at a door set, it's a multi-point locking door set. It's been tested as that. Add anything additional compromises the testing. One from Lee. With so many stage 3 adaptations being carried out, where a tenant has an automatic overhead door opener installed, does this affect the integrity of the door? It doesn't affect the integrity of the door. That's a good question, actually. I've come across that myself. You just need to make sure that the overhead closer, the automatic one, what will it actually do in the event of a fire? Would it fall to close or would it fall to open? I would suggest that it fails to close. The reason being, if the fire is in the flat, the occupant has a chance to escape. If the fire is outside the flat, if the door falls to close, it's still protected within the flat. One from Kez. What are the laws and protocol in relation to building fire hoses? A lot of our developments within trusts, we were asked to remove them a while ago, although sometimes firefighters recommend and stress the width fire hose was at reception area 1 or 1 on each floor. That's all right. It's not in relation to fire doors, but I can still answer it. The recommendation from the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service is that fire hoses on site are removed. There's kind of 2 threads to that. The first is that it's a Legionella risk. If there's any water within the hose, there can be a Legionella issue there. And also, who's responsible for maintenance and testing of these fire hoses? You would never want to go to a fire as a fire operative and use a hose that didn't actually work, or it was perished, or it wasn't fit for purpose, or even worse, you got Legionella. So my kind of thoughts on that are to go with what the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service are saying, and they've recommended to us that they're removed from site. What paint finishes for fire door? From Graham. Paint finishes are normally you can get fire doors in any RAL colour now. So if you've got a specific colour, it can be colour matched. That's no issue at all, and they're normally just sprayed in a booth in the factory. It's kind of as simple as that. What is my stance on hardwood splicing additions to small areas of damaged FD30 door casings? From Alan. Alan, again, this goes back to repairs and remediation work. Again, if it's a wood splicing issue, again, that would potentially need to be a BM Trada or QMark certified repair technician. And it would need to be hardwood, specified as hardwood as well. Going back to your photos of the hinge and overhead closer, where they were refitted and required intermittent space. Why did that warrant that door not compliant? Why did that warrant that door's not? Why does it affect the performance of the integrity? So basically, yeah, the door where I showed you in these two instances were actually the door with the hinge was a new door that had been fitted at some point into an existing opening. And first of all, it didn't fit. Second of all, there was no intrumescent materials present. There was no packing, and there was also a gap where the larger hinge had been. There was no attempt made to actually repair or fill that area. What I would have done is I would have taken that standard out and replaced it with a hardwood standard and used intumescent packer on that. The one with the closer, again, it was an incorrect closer that was installed. It was a non-fire rated closer. It's kind of that simple. Neil again, what is your advice on how to address the issue of notional fire doors for flat entrance doors? I'm not sure what you mean by notional fire doors for flat entrance doors, Neil. Yeah, and just quite rightly pointed out about Lee's question about the automatic fire doors that in that situation they would require a PEEP, personal emergency evacuation plan, specific to them. Yeah, and Lee's mentioned they've got PERAs in place. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, if there is a fire and the fire brigade attends and they actually deem that there is a need for evacuation, they will organise the evacuation. That's why it's important that you have your PEEPs or your PERAs at the front door in the fire folder. You would either use vertical or horizontal evacuation plans. But again, that's different from your fire strategy and your site-specific fire action plan. So just a reminder there, and just to kind of tie this up, that we're here for any advice you need, or if you want to just have a chat, if you've got any queries, please contact me. Open to engaging with anybody on this. I hope you've found it useful. Stuart will be distributing a copy of the video and also a copy of my slides and the questions as well. We'll get these all typed up, so within the next week or so you'll receive an email with all that information. And I hope you've enjoyed it today. Okay. Good to see you all. Thanks very much for joining, and I'll catch up with you soon. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.